So the action item before us is recommendations on this topic. Trustees, I'd like to hear anything from the floor, from the public. Mr. Merten, would you like the mic? It's getting easier to carry now, there's less people, but you can have it if you like it.
20, the first one has to do with calculation of gross floor area, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
No, visibility.
Oh, visibility part, yes, sorry. Would you like the mic or no?
No, I don't need
Okay,
much.
thank you.
I'd like to talk about, I don't care what number it is, but the one has to do with calculation of gross floor area.
Okay, that's number 26.
That's 26.
Right now, okay, I got 26. Right now, the land development code is quite clear. It says that if you have residential space, and there's an open area underneath that space, and if the floor of that residential area is more than 7 feet below the space above the ground floor below, that space has to be calculated into the gross floor area of the building. That's the image on top. It says existing. Now, this affects what happens in the PDO. Right now, in our urban area, commercial buildings have a maximum allowed floor area ratio of 1.3. If you do a mixed-use building with residential, you get a density bonus, you can go to 1.7. Right now, if you have an open parking space in the back of your building underneath that residential area, that parking area is calculated into the gross floor area. And the top example is what is the space you have available when you include that covered parking area. The code change is to not count that area, as in the second example. When you don't count that area and you build out to a maximum 1.7, look what happens on the street facade. Instead of having balconies and setback on the second floor and decks on the second floor, because you're not allowed to build there, now suddenly you build right up to the street level on that second floor. So it's going to change the appearance of mixed-use buildings in the PDO. Over in the shores area, for example, when you start calculating floor area ratio, when you have, in our urban core, we have a 2-story limit, so that's what's showing in that second one. But in those parts of our area where we have a 3-story limit, shows on the bottom page, that's what happens when you do not count this covered parking area in the gross floor area. So it's going to change the appearance and the apparent bulk and size of our buildings. So if we're happy with our size limits in our area, if the city adopts this provision, you're going to have to come back and change your maximum floor area ratios in our own PDO. Change it down a bit. Because this code change is allowing buildings that are bigger in size. That's the issue. Now, why does it come up right now? Well, I think the reason is this. You remember there was a famous project over in La Jolla Shores, the Whitney project. There was a big discussion about the way in which floor area ratio was calculated. Mr. Whitney's architect calculated it like the proposed change. That's being challenged in court right now as a misrepresentation as the mass and bulk of the building. So I think the city is trying to change the ordinance right now to bring it into compliance with the way Mr. Whitney presented it, not the way in which it's required to be calculated under the current municipal code.
Excuse me, I didn't think FARs counted in La Jolla Shores, is that correct? Or FARs, do they count in La Jolla Shores?
There are no maximum limits, but when you calculate the size of a building relative to other building sizes, having an accurate calculation of those sizes is important for a matter of comparison.
Right, but legally,
so there are no maximum FARs in Hoy Shores, that's correct. But the way in which a building is quantified in terms of its bulk is important. And that's why the city, I believe, is changing this, is because it's now, they're having to defend their position in court.
Bill,
That's my understanding.
Bill,
I don't know if that's the case.
this be an important consideration for any, in the PDO and any place that allows mixed-use development. That is where it would be.
Anywhere mixed-use village, mixed-use development. Down at Bird Rock, in our PDO, anywhere mixed-use development occurs.
Downtown La Jolla.
City High.
Yeah.
So,
I think you've
I'm
got,
just making you aware, if you think it's a good idea to exclude the covered parking area under residential in a floor area calculation, that's fine, but be aware of it. But the impact of this would mean the buildings are going to get bigger and bulkier because of it.
right, no, I understand.
So if we don't like it, what do we do?
So,